This morning I was remembering what I had read Gandhi had said to Winston Churchill when Winston Churchill received him at the airport negotiating the independence of India. Churchill received him in London, and he said, and Gandhi came with a loincloth, and Winston goes up and, so, Mr. Gandhi, what do you think of civilization? And Gandhi says to him, it would be a good idea. Anyway, I thought this morning that if we were able to bottle the highlights of what we call civilization culture over the last 6,000 years, it's much older than that, but if we were able to bottle that into a power drink and give it to every single human being on the planet, all the highlights of literature and music and painting and architecture and philosophy, thoughts, high-mindedness, all these things in a power drink, in like a bottle, and everybody gets to drink from it, what would happen? And I thought about it, and within the concept that I work in, I realized it wouldn't make a hell of a difference. It would make no difference whatsoever. The idea of culture contributing to our well-being, in essence, is an illusion. And I'm working on paintings, and the reason I work on paintings, this is something that happened to me personally over the last 6-7 years, especially after Fukushima blew up, 3/11/11, that I'm trying to tie myself to the work that I do, the paintings that I do, in regard to this idea in some way, that why make a painting? And I have an aesthetic side to myself because I'm aware of art history and what people struggle with and the challenges they present themselves and the ideas about making a thing look a certain way. And then, of course, how you make something, I think, is more important than what it is. What the story is an entertaining aspect of what it is that you're making, but it's how you make it. I'm talking about painting. Maybe it applies to other areas as well. But what I was thinking is, why wouldn't it make a difference? And I'm saying that if these highlights, these extraordinary achievements in our history would make a difference, we would be such an enlightened being. If you look at all the great accomplishments, that you would naturally say, yeah, we've really come a long way. And I say, we haven't come a long way. And this is what I've been realizing, specifically in regard to this monumental disaster called nuclearism and Fukushima and the nuclear plants, not even the bombs. Of course, the bombs are a whole other aspect of this. But here was my thought, that if we were able to bottle all this brilliance of knowledge and information and even insight, I'm going to leave, and logic supposedly, and I'll leave reason out because I have an affection for the idea for reason, as I feel reason in my life. Reason. It's like something that we have within us. We don't necessarily learn reason. So I'll leave that out. But the idea of bottling this power drink of brilliance would make no difference to our lives. In fact, the ship is sinking no matter what. And I don't have a physical solution to Fukushima. I think there are people out there that know what to do. Well, number one, we get rid of all anything to do with nuclear, because, for example, if you stand beside one of those spent fuel rods in these fuel pools, of which there are 300,000 tons of spent fuel rods and garbage from this ridiculous process, you die within a minute. You're gone. You stand beside one of these gamma, alpha, beta emitting isotopes coming off this ridiculous invention, this brilliance. It's sort of like standing, if you think about Hitler and his cronies going to listen to a performance of Beethoven's symphony conducted by Furtwängler or Karajan or Klemper, whoever, they were sitting there pretending to themselves that they had absorbed this incredible insight and wisdom, and they turn around and they create genocide. The same way that people that are producing nuclearism live in mansions and magnificent places, and they go to operas and they collect art, and they haven't got a clue what it is that culture means to us. And I have come to the conclusion that if we're able to can this shit, called culture, the highlights of culture, the way it's being presented, actually, it makes no difference. And I'll tell you why it makes no difference. That in our lives, the most incredible power that we have, and I have said this over and over, the most incredible power we have is to exercise conscience. Conscience. And I've been reticent to invoke the concept of love. You can do that for yourself, whatever that means to you. But I understand conscience because I understand in myself when I do the right thing or I do the wrong thing. And if I hurt, if I'm nasty, if I do things that are destructive, I've never killed anyone. When I was a kid, I feel really bad about this. I shot birds. It was like a weird exercise of dominance over another creature. I still feel the pain of that period of my life when I was like 11, 12, and I stopped, But anyway, the idea of hurting the way civilization would be a good idea is enacting itself on the planet, on each other. We have been in more wars and conflicts since recorded history. In fact, it works out to something like in 6,000 years of recorded history, we have been in conflict for most of that time, except for about 265 years cumulatively, not in a row, cumulatively. That history does not show a conflict of murder, maiming, and killing. So I say the reason culture and art and all this stuff is an illusion and doesn't work is because we're not exercising an a priori, a more powerful component in us that I say is conscience to do the right thing. And it's not a matter of argument. I don't have to say, if somebody says a nuclear scientist produces what they do, like Einstein said, if I had known what they're going to do with this, I would have become a watchmaker. Now, that's the most telling response by somebody who understood what it is that he had done. He would say, I would gladly, like I say, live in mud huts and wear wood shoes to get rid of this monster. So anyway, the reason what we always say to ourselves, culture is so magnificent. No, it's not. It's not. And the reason it's not that it can't be, but the reason it's not is because we don't exercise this one single component. This is lying dormant. For whatever reason, it's dormant. And we have to conjure this in ourselves. It takes work. It takes effort to make that choice, to make that judgment, to say, I'm not going to do this. And it's simply not to cause hurt. Not to cause hurt is the primary function of conscience. And then, of course, that can elevate and escalate. And to the point where this part in us is active, we can produce works of brilliance that will make a difference. But it's actually not active. This part in us, for the general population on this planet, is either dormant, inactive, or the sociopaths and psychopaths have basically hijacked this thing within us because they can't feel it. They can the Rumsfeld, the Cheneys, the people that the Genghis Khans, the Hitlers, the Stalins, these people, Mao's, they have no ability to activate this part. And if they're complete sociopaths and psychopaths, it's you understand why. I still think they know they're doing something nasty and horrible. It's just that they have displaced that part of themselves. That's why they call them sociopaths and psychopaths. They've been able to displace that part of themselves and pretend and come up with lots of different reasons why it's for their greater good or their personal good or whatever flawed thinking they might have in regard to this part of us that actually will make the difference between our ship sinking, ship going down. It's not going to be how brilliant we were in the past. The magnificent art produced over the last 6,000 years on whatever level. That's not what's going to save our ass. It's Unless that part, that magnificence is connected to conscience, it won't make any difference. And whatever, if I could bottle this brilliance, I wouldn't even bother. I wouldn't bother. What I would bottle is that one little tiny pill called conscience and give it to everybody on the planet.